I'm joined for this special panel on 3D printing and its marketing future by Namrata Mehta. Are you going to join us on stage, Namrata? Namrata does a number of things in the Vihara Group, including running the Civic Innovation Lab, which is an attempt to really look at how technology and innovation can be used to improve civic services and to provide new kinds of services for government. We also have on this panel a series of other enthusiasts of 3D printing, which is the topic of the panel here. And Namrata, if you could invite our fellow panelists up, maybe. Namrata?
So to begin, we're just going to quickly run through 3D printing, a brief history about what it is. A lot of people think that 3D printing is new, but it actually began around 1983 by a man called Charles Hull. And so just for those of you who don't know or aren't aware, 3D printing is an additive manufacturing sort of technique. So if you look at this right here, it's about creating a sort of layered product rather than sculpting out something, which is what traditional manufacturing processes are. So just very quickly going through what 3D printers typically look like or how they function. There's three axes, the Z, the Y, and the X. And there's a bed upon which the product is printed. There's a filament or material which is fed into an extruder head that sort of moves along the X and Y and Z axis to sort of create these different layers. So some of the materials and applications most typically right now you find is plastic. So PLA or ABS is what is most popularly used. You can see here is an example of books being 3D printed so that visually impaired children can have access to the sort of visual language of the story being told. This is ceramic, porcelain to be specific. So that's another material that people artisans are now maybe using or have access to use. Metal, jewelry is a big industry that's using 3D printing right now. So all different kinds of metal can be used through this process. Housing, so you might have heard a lot of stories about China manufacturing houses now. So this is concrete that's then sort of layered up to create walls that are then sort of put into place to create structures. Food, chocolate to be specific, but there's lots of other kinds of food material that is also being printed. And as you can see now, there's someone's face being printed in a chocolate form, so you can really customize different kinds of material to suit your need. Fashion is another industry that's using 3D printing a lot. Electronics, so here you can print sort of PCBs instead of getting them manufactured large scale. You can customize them. People in Japan are doing lots of crazy things with 3D printing, so a lot of them are actually getting their ultrasound scanned and sort of creating 3D models of their babies and then sort of putting them into resin. The health industry, very specifically, is using 3D printing to create new kinds of medical technologies, both in terms of sort of prosthetic limbs, but also tissues and other kinds of organic material is now sort of being used in the 3D printing process. And then just very quickly introducing you to what printers look like. So this, for example, is what's called a RepRap machine. It's an open source machine, which basically means that it sort of prints the parts that are required to build another printer. And that's a sort of community of 3D printer makers who come together and sort of create, so if I have a RepRap machine, I will print out the parts for another RepRap machine and give it to somebody else for him to make another printer, and so on and so forth, so it sort of propagates itself. You might have heard of the MakerBot, which is one of the most sort of famous 3D printers, or one of the companies that makes it. It's based in New York right now. There is the 3D Doodler that you might have seen on Kickstarter. It was a project that was funded through that process. It's a sort of a pen that also you can use as, you can sort of put filament into it and then you can create or draw three-dimensional objects. And then I guess this is sort of where 3D printing is headed, which is towards some sort of marketplace. So this is a website called Shapeways, for example, where you can customize and create different kinds of products that you would like to print and get made for yourself. Jewelry, like I mentioned, is a popular example. This is a website called Thingiverse, where a lot of people upload specific sort of 3D files that then anyone can just download and print. So it's another kind of marketplace that's coming up. Here we're looking at the Solidry website, and we have two representatives from Solidry, well, both the founders of Solidry with us today. And they've sort of moved along from being a marketplace for 3D printing to now focusing on 3D selfies, for example, that they'll tell you more about. And moving on, I mean, what we're seeing right now is a sort of community of people that are working with 3D printing. And so here you can see, for example, different places in Delhi where you can get things 3D printed for your very specific needs that you might have. And that's sort of where we're going to leave off now. And I'm going to give the mic back to Aditya so he can ask us a whole bunch of questions about 3D printing.
Cool.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Namrata. So for each of you guys, in order, I introduced you as 3D printing enthusiasts. Are you, in fact, enthusiasts? And what makes you enthusiastic about 3D printing? If you'd introduce yourselves for the audience once again and explain your relationship to 3D printing.
So, hi everyone, I'm Shantanu, and I've been the founder of Solidry for past 1 year, and with Pranav. And we have been doing a lot of making a lot of 3D printers. Then we have been doing a lot of 3D printing services to businesses. And then we finally boiled down to making 3D selfies, where we scan people from top to bottom. And we create a small miniature figurines of themselves made out of sandstone or wood or resin and a lot of different materials. So as you asked that how I became the 3D printing enthusiast, actually this technology was, as Namrata told us, it's like 3 decades ago. And I personally didn't even knew about it. Even when I was in college, I was aware of it, but I had no interest in it. But now since this huge evolution has come along, which has made the 3D printing technology very cheap and very available, it has come to desktop, people's desktop, and people want to bring the complete China manufacturing on people's desktops. So all these things and all the other environment which has been built around the 3D printing, this is making people more enthusiastic. This is making this whole technology more interesting because a lot of new applications have come along. So these all things are now making 3D printing a very interesting subject. And as we found out the very amazing applications of it, and as we now believe that it could actually change the whole manufacturing process of or economy of India or the world. So we got much interested into it, and we finally thought like we should take it as a business.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Pranav, and I started Solidry along with Shantanu. So the way we got actually into it, there's a little story behind it. So once we were sitting and watching a movie and something broke, and we both were like, dude, I don't want to go away and get this thing. So why don't we have a 3D printer so that we could just print this thing? And we looked at each other, and then we were like, yes, why don't we have a 3D printer? Let's start building 3D printers. And that's how the very next day we figured out different things, went through websites and figured out how to build a 3D printer. And that's when I met Namrata and other people around Delhi who could, who were very enthusiastic about 3D printing. And that's how this whole movement started. We started off with organizing, we started off with little events here and there, and then slowly and slowly the community grew, and that's when we figured out there's a whole bunch of economy and business around it, and that's how it sort of moved on, and we have came a long way from that day, and we are now full-fledged into providing 3D printing as a service and doing 3D selfies and helping designers prototype their designs, and yeah, it's very exciting the way it goes.
Cheers. Shiv.
Hey, I'm Shiv. I'm an industrial designer. My story isn't quite as interesting. I went to college for industrial design. So over the years, I made several 3D models, and I printed them to show my prototypes to my professors. It gives you a hands-on perspective of what something might look like in the real world, as opposed to seeing it digitally on your computer. So you get to hold it, you get to feel it, you get to touch it, you get to move things around. And so it gives you a much more tangible feel of what that product may end up being. Now I design and manufacture scalpels. it costs 50 lakhs just to make the mold for a scalpel, and then if I make the mold and then I produce a scalpel and it ends up being a failure of a product, then I lose a lot of money. So for me, 3D printing is all about refining the product before I actually go in and finally make the mold and produce a product. So 3D printing for me is an extremely economical way of making sure that I end up making a product that's going to work and it's going to be out in the marketplace. And similarly, I think in the marketing world as well, for people to produce products which they can show to their clients, which would potentially go on to be a mass manufactured thing, is a very good technology to utilize.
You'll have to speak up.
Yeah, it's really hard to. Yeah. Well, I guess I got into 3D printing mostly because of the RepRap machine that I already spoke to you about. Just the conceptual idea of something, a machine especially, that can replicate itself, to me was really exciting. And that's what got me into it. But also, it opened up the possibility of a community of people who could come together to sort of experiment with a new kind of technology. And that's kind of why I'm enthusiastic about the potential of it.
Okay. So maybe a bit of a tough question, but let's get to the heart of things quickly. Can any of you provide me a vision for what a 3D printing economy is going to look like? I hope we're going to be living in one very soon, early in the next decade. In which case, what will that economy look like, right? So no entailment to keep talking, just say what's interesting. What is interesting about that economy as you try to envision it?
The way I see it is that going ahead, people would be more, as happens with any technology, that time goes on and the price of the hardware keeps on decreasing. So the way I envision 3D printing economy growing is that at some point of time, a lot of people would be having 3D printers across their offices, across their homes, and this would lead to an economy wherein people would sort of be enthusiastic about creating stuff that they want to make. So from simple things like creating a shower head to creating a glass to creating plates, like common household things, and then to office style things. So, and the way we see ourselves is that bridging that gap between people to print the design. So the way we figure out is that helping people build better designs, giving them better software so that they could just unleash their creativity, build the products, and then there could be a lot of 3D printers in and around them so that they could get it easily 3D printed. That's the way I see it. Do you have a different?
Yeah, and I just want to add that as he's saying that the 3D printing is going to commoditize, so the main IP which is still people are holding is 3D scanning part of it. Because to get something printed, you need to have a 3D model, and how you are creating that design and how you are making a 3D model, that's where you hold some IP. And another thing is that mostly people ask me that is this completely going to disrupt the manufacturing industry? So I would say not, because or is it going to make people lose their job? Because I just compared this to a revolution which came along with the computers. So as computers came, we said that people are going to lose many of their jobs. But I think that the servicing around the 3D printing technology, or the more people get into the design manufacturing, so that's going to create a lot of jobs, a lot of new markets, and a lot of new industries because of the many applications of 3D printing, because now people can make objects which were actually not possible to make before.
So let me stop you there. You're in some ways preempting maybe another line of questioning that I had in mind. But
that the jobs would be lost, but there would be new jobs which would be emerging. Because one of the main thing is which going to be disrupted is supply chain. Because now things need not to be shipped. Because once you have a design and which is being designed in Europe, and you wanted it in China, you don't need to like ship it to China. You just have a 3D printer in China and just make it there itself. So this the supply chain and the logistic, these things gonna disrupt.
Okay, I hear you. Could I just ask Namrata and you, Shiv, to come in on this question of customization? Is this 3D revolution also going to lead to advances in real mass customization as opposed to segmented mass customization?
Yeah, I think customization is obviously one of the major benefits of 3D printing, because you can, rather than printing a whole bunch of things that are made for a bunch of different people, you can customize that single print to be for that one specific person. So I think in the advertising world where you're targeting this one specific customer that you really want to get their attention, customizing a product or even a graphic or moving from a two-dimensional space into a three-dimensional space specifically for their needs could be an extremely useful part of 3D printing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's one of the benefits of 3D printing, is that the ability to create very particular customized products for a very targeted user. But at the same time, I think the possibility of who gets to do that is going to still be limited or niche. So not to say that you and I will necessarily be the people customizing our own products, but I think there is another step that has to happen before, because it's not easy to 3D model, for example. It's a very particular skill that you need to have. So how do we actually transition from sort of us just being people who are enthusiasts to people who are actually using and designing and then printing? So the ability to customize will sort of be still held with a sort of smaller group of people who have that skill and ability.
So, I mean, I have a concern that relates, I think, to this audience, which is that as you have now the power to minutely customize, so not even like fake customize, like mass customize, etc. Like basically I've got a bunch of industrially manufactured parts that I assemble uniquely for a certain portfolio of customers, not that kind of mass customization, but true mass customization wherein I've got some sort of a base product which I have then rendered in a unique way that nobody else even knows how I rendered it for myself. Does that kill the entire marketing industry?
One of the examples that I saw was there was this sort of online software where you could choose which phone that you wanted a mobile cover for. So I go to a drop-down bar, I choose iPhone 6, and then I'm presented with another text bar where I can just throw in my name. So I type in Shiv, and within a few days I have this 3D printed mobile phone cover which has Shiv written on it and whatever other like imagery that I want sort of carved into that mobile phone. So I mean, I would find something like that much more appealing and personalized because it's customized specifically for me, as opposed to just going to a store and buying the same iPhone cover that everybody else has.
So this presumably would not make a lot of people here very comfortable.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what other people's opinions
are. So presumably that the guy who made that iPhone cover, it's still an iPhone, remember, so that's the upside. Yeah. But I mean, that too could dissolve, and there are efforts, to make this, right, utterly customized. What is that thing called? Google supporting this.
Project Ara. Yeah, Project Ara.
So it won't be an iPhone in the future. That too will be like this morphing, inchoate kind of fuzzy product. The product is fuzzy, the cover is fuzzy, both are customized to each other, right? You have decided what slots to it's become fatter and thinner based on your, peer customization. Right. So in this universe, I mean, I'm not sure that it'll come about, but in this vision of the future, as it were, platform players have become invisible to the customer's imagination. There's some lead hackers out there like you guys that they know you. But you guys are just still like two-man shows, or you're super users of certain kinds. You're enabling a whole, let's say, 75,000 users in Delhi area you're serving, but you're not a global brand. You are a pretty local kind of player. So in this world, have we just kind of dissolved this massive global players and all the advertising dollars and all that kind of concentration of power into the marketing community that obtains today? Will that still obtain in this 3D printed economy?
I mean, I think we also shouldn't forget that there are non-physical or non-3D printable products in the world as well. So that economy is not going anywhere, and that's going to continue to exist. But I can definitely see lots of shift in the hardware space. And And the product space as well, definitely. But how do those two economies come together? Then is I would think the question.
So let's come. Yeah, just 1 second. I will come back to this phone that we've 3D printed, assembled, got a special case for, right? It's a very unique artifact. I'm glad you have it. I'm sure you love it a lot. Now, is it a luxury artifact?
I think it can vary from being a luxury artifact or not. I mean, one of the things that options that you get in 3D printing is choosing what material that you want to print it in. Maybe if it was printed in carbon fiber, it would be a luxury material. But the fact that it was customized in the first place probably makes it a luxury product in the first place, because it's not mass manufactured, it's made specifically for your needs. Because it's made specifically for your needs, it's probably more expensive than just buying something that's mass manufactured. So I think today it's probably, I would classify it as a luxury, but maybe down the line it becomes so accessible that people would just be able to do it in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, more or less it's just a design. So even if you have a 3D printer at home, you can get the same design 3D printed in a cheaper material. So, but it becomes a luxury product if you go with the different materials, as he said, that go with sandstone, titanium, or copper, or metal products that even in gold or silver. Now people selling jewelries to customer, directly to customers, customized jewelries which can be sold into gold and silver. So those kind of products make them a luxury product, which can be professionally 3D printed only. But the products which you can make at your home, so that's more only the design there, which is doing all the work.
Cast your minds to one of Delhi's largest slums, Govindpuri, which is also a major center for all kinds of manufacturing. We have some health technologies that we're getting made in Govindpuri right now. Can you envision when 3D printing is mass commoditized, what kind of impact it will have on that economy? Are those guys going to be like, oh, hell for leather, yeah, we all got 3D printers? Or they're going to be like, there's nothing to do?
You know, I think that one of the main challenges that 3D printing could compete with the mass manufacturing is that it takes a lot of time. You know, to get that iPhone case printed, it takes around 30 to 20 minutes. And to make like thousands of them with a mold, it takes 30 minutes to 20 minutes. So here the mass manufacturing is making like 1,000 compared to the one single product which was 3D printed. So the only things I believe that will be 3D printed which are only customized.
You know, I'm not sure I agree with you on that. There's no future for conventional manufacturing. Like the only future for manufacturing is robotic manufacturing, where the difference between 3D printed artifacts and industrially manufactured robot manufacturing is going to be just a blur. It's a continuum. There isn't really going to be this kind of divide that we can see in our economy today. It won't exist in the future. Go ahead, Shiv.
You know, I think that's a really good question, and I think it's sort of goes back into your question about how 3D printing is influences the economy as well. The one of the problems with 3D printing, as it is with houses and cars, is that 3D printers are just lying idle for most of the time when you have them. I mean, even these guys probably overnight, maybe once in a while you'll be printing a selfie or something overnight, but most of the time they're just sitting there. When you go to work and you leave your car outside your office, it's just sitting there doing nothing. And that's why the shared economy has come up. That's why you've got your Ubers, Lyfts, Airbnbs. So I feel 3D printers will go really well with the shared economy, where maybe in a slum like Govindpuri, there'll be 1 or 2 3D printers that could be there maybe in the future. I don't know, this is just a crazy idea. And people go in and take advantage of that one 3D printer that they have and print something that could be useful to a whole bunch of people. I remember reading about the Nokia case study that somebody had designed a Nokia phone in Dharavi, I think it was. And yeah, he had come up with the little hook for the phone which could allow it to be hung, because people come back in the rain and they don't want their phone sitting in like a puddle of water. So maybe stuff like that could be printed in a single area and change the shared economy as well.
You know, Namrata, we had been in our dialogue around this session talking a little bit about knitting as an entire segment of 3D printing, which is kind of under thought. And So it's not only that you're going to be printing hard artifacts, but you're going to be 3D knitting, and there's a blur again between things that you think of as tapestry and things that you think of as product. Right? That blur will begin to be seen. Just to mention that, I would imagine that it would be desirable and interesting to have a 3D printer integrated with my washing machine, so that I'm actually making myself new knitted material all the time. Right? This is not potentially interesting. Yeah?
You could print that. Well, just two things to say about the Govindpuri. It is happening. There is a lady who's working with women and children in Govindpuri, creating a specific 3D modeling app that then syncs to a printer that's easier for them to use. So that's already happening.
Okay.
And then the other thing about 3D printing and the economy, which is, I don't fully know which way this is going to go, but there is a lot around waste that the 3D printing industry is going to start questioning. It's like, is it more wasteful or less? I think the verdict is not so clear as yet, but that's definitely something that I think is what's going to change in the economy because of this kind of manufacturing, for sure.
So, please, go ahead.
Very relevant question to this, not to this point, but to the earlier point. Don't you think 3D printing as a concept takes economy of scale out of the window? Do you agree with this? Is it applicable economy of scale?
Well, to a certain point, I think that's a valid point, because the way conventional manufacturing has been happening, it produces a lot of goods at a very relatively less time, which is not the case with 3D printing. But then the way I see this going ahead is that to sort of reach an equilibrium wherein the scale manufacturing happens. Like as Shiv pointed out, he had to get his molds done, and this costed him like 50 lakhs or something. So those molds can be made very cheaply and very fastly, iteratively in 3D printing. And once those molds are made, the conventional methods could be used to create lots of them. So I see both of them not competing with each other, but rather than complementing each other in certain ways, and then driving the economy even faster and at a very fast pace, the way I see it.
Future is hybrid.
The future is going to be hybrid. It's not one against the other or one leading, but I think the both are going to be in hand to hand, and that's the way economy would be progressing.
Any other questions from the floor? Please.
Y'all are working with recycled filament right now, right?
Most of the filaments which are used with 3D printing right now, they are totally biodegradable, and they are not even oil based. They are made out of sugarcane. So they are completely biodegradable. They are completely recyclable. So the question about creating a lot of waste, I do agree that, because even if you print a single object, you need to print it twice or thrice, so that until you get it perfectly right. So yeah, you create 2 extra objects per object, but that is like completely recyclable, and people are creating machines which can actually crush those objects down and convert them again to the filament, which is reusable, and that can work in like 15 minutes. So yeah, I don't think there is a problem of wastage, because the environment has been built so that it's completely recyclable and environmentally safe.
Any other questions from the floor? Any other final thoughts from you guys? I mean, I have a question that I didn't ask up my sleeve. I mean, I finished with that maybe. What is the future of retail? If 3D printing directly from website, at this point you don't even need Flipkart as an intermediary, no logistics, no distribution. Basically, I like it, I order it, it's made at home. So is there a future for retail? How will our cities change?
I think it depends on the commodity or the item that we are talking about here. So when we talk about Flipkarts or Amazons, so there's a whole lot of variety and a whole lot of products. Not everything can be printed as of date, but maybe if we are talking about the smaller items, they can be very easily 3D printed. But yeah, I think those are the items that are going to be outlined from the retail section and gonna be come up with the 3D printing stuff. So I think that's still gonna be existing, and the retail section is not going to be anywhere. The retail section is still going to be existing, but then some of the products would be 3D printed as opposed to like going with the retail.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think
Dude,
that
you guys are like no futurists at all. You guys are actually doing it, making the change, and you're like, nothing much will happen.
no, actually, there's no gonna be big change in the process we follow for our retail right now. But they're gonna be an offline retail as well, and they're gonna be an online retail as well. Because right now also there are 3D printing cafes, there are 3D printing stores where you can go in, have a coffee, and chat with people while you're
Print your cup before you have your coffee.
Yeah, while it's getting printed, and people. And most of the other restaurants, brands like the Hellman was using 3D printers in such a way that before you eat a burger, you can have a mayonnaise topping on it in shape of your
in
head.
shape of your face.
Yeah. So in all these ways, the offline retail is gonna pick up in space of 3D printing, and online is already there since you can sell designs and since you can actually sell the 3D printed products around it.
So like Shapeways is printing about 180,000 3D printed stuffs every month. So that's the scale at which 3D printing is growing. So similarly, there would be localized marketplaces who would be doing a lot of 3D printing for consumers at a very local space.
Yeah, I think you guys touched on the retail part really well. One of the things that I find really interesting about 3D printing that ties into having to buy something new and the wastage part, I had lost the end to my vacuum cleaner a few months ago. You know, you have like various fitments for vacuum cleaners. Mine was, I lost it somewhere, and you can't actually go to a store and buy the end to that vacuum cleaner. But with a 3D printer, you can print the end to your vacuum cleaner and use it for as long as you want. It could break and you could print it all over again. So otherwise I would have had to probably go and buy a new vacuum cleaner just because I lost that one part. So I think it has a massive impact on retail and kind of response to your wastage question as well.
In a way, it's stopping users to buy the complete product again because you lost some part of it. But yeah, you're giving better customer support to your customers by giving out the designs of your parts of whatever machine you made. You just give out the designs out there. If you lost something, you can get it printed. Similarly, like there was this insurance company, DVV. So what they did that if there's a car insurance company, and if somebody lost their car keys, so they can, if they have the design already scanned with the insurance company, they can give you another 3D printed key. So you actually never lose a key, you just get it 3D printed, again you lost it. And it actually saved the company a lot of money, which they were giving out while people lose their keys, and they were giving out cashbacks for the lost keys. So it actually saved a lot of money to them.
Yeah, man, if I can take a photograph of your keychain, I can get into your locker, right? Same thing with fingerprints now.
Yeah, if the 3D scanning is becomes so simple that you just take a photograph and you get the whole model out of it, then probably we need to figure out ways and how to protect things, how to protect our designs.
So, you know, one last thought. This is an old thought, actually. 25 years ago, yeah, please, you want to ask a question before that? Yeah.
So I share your view on the matter that it will not affect any industry drastically, and it will only merge and become a hybrid part of their design centers. To be more cost-effective on a large scale. But don't you guys have tried out on the gifting industry or the greetings card and these kind of industry wherein customized 3D printing can have an impact which can actually disturb many of the existing businesses?
Yeah, and actually we do believe that for us, the gifting industry, gifting market is the primary focus, because what we are making is a one of a kind of customized product which is exactly you, exact replica of you.
Rather than getting a
Yeah, absolutely. And so those products gonna change. We gonna have new ideas around 3D printing, and you can give the same value to the customer in a better way, with a better idea. But the way it's going through, that's gonna be same, because you're going to be sell online only, and you're going to be focused only on your gifting market. Like we are focusing on weddings, where we could get replicas of people on their weddings. We are trying to focus on pregnant women, so that they can actually restore the memory how they used to look like when they were pregnant. And we are focusing on kids, so when they are growing, they can have like each movement 3D printed themselves. So yeah, the gifting industry is one of our primary focus.
And actually, if you go to our website, we have a bunch of different products that are hybrid, in the sense that can have a lot of messages in it. So that's a product, that's a utility, but then in sense that it has a value, it has an emotional value attached to it. So there are things like there's a pencil stand holder that has a whole lot of messages written around it. So things like those that capture a user's attention for 5-10 minutes and then still can be used as a utility item. So I see the way 3D printing is going ahead, that like one way is definitely the gifting industry, and the other way is like evolving new kind of gifts and evolving new kind of products which could associate directly to the person and could still be used as a utility item. So I think there's a lot of scope in that, and gifting industry itself is a huge industry. It's around 10,000 crore industry in India itself only. So the way that's one of the huge segments that wherein 3D printing is going to be forward.
Yeah.
What is the typical cost of this? Because I know 3D printing. What is the typical cost of getting a commercially viable 3D printer?
Because there are a big, huge range of 3D printers available. You can get a 3D printer in $100,000 also, a professional 3D printer, and you can get a 3D printer in $100 also today. So it basically depends on what is your actual usage, what materials are you gonna use. But to actually roll out a finished product in every material, to cover out every material, you mostly go with the professionals ones these days. But their cost is gonna come down really soon, because at the like the last year only, all these patents which were holding the technology back, so they all got expired. And now open source community and people are trying those methods and technology to create their own 3D printers. And these all things gonna take the cost down of professional ones as well very soon.
Put a little more light on the IPR issues with the scanning part of it. You just touched upon it. I just want you to elaborate a little further. What are the IPR issues related to that, and when are the patents going to expire exactly?
So 3D scanning patents are like very, very varied in the time of events. So like 3 decades ago, we had 3D printing, and then gradually 3D scanning IPs is coming along. And they're still coming along, because there are many different ways of doing 3D scanning. People are doing with scanners, people are trying to do it with photographs, people are trying to do it with drones. So there are different kinds of scanning. It also depends on what thing you are actually scanning. So all these methods, like, it varies on your usages. So
sorry guys, I think I need to close the panel. I'm getting that signal from the organizers, so you guys should take this offline.
Yeah.
Let me just close with this thought that, say clear until the middle of the last decade, you wouldn't have had access to Wikipedia. You wouldn't have access to the kinds of intellectual knowledge resources that are common all the time now. And so we already live in a society of information and knowledge abundance. Just-in-time knowledge is a reality for us in a way it wasn't true even, let's say, 15 years ago in our own lifetime. I'm very bullish that you guys are creating a world in which there's no kind of scarcity, right? There's no kind of product scarcity. So the concept of a luxury product or product scarcity itself, I think, is something that you guys are working towards entirely eradicating. I want to live in that world. So thanks very much. Please give it up for the panel.